black women. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Make your next lunch a lunch combo from Buffalo Wild Wings. Choose from wings, street tacos, and more. Head to Buffalo Wild Wings or order online at buffalowildwings.com at participating locations for a limited time, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Price and participation vary by location. Taxes extra. See menu for details.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Lance Lynn will be the Dodgers starting pitcher tonight in Game 3 against the Arizona Diamondbacks in Phoenix. The Dodgers, facing a must-win situation, are putting their trust in a guy who gave up 44 homers in the regular season, the most in the major leagues. It is very important for Lynn to get off to a good start. The Diamondbacks have scored a combined 9 runs in the first inning in Games 1 and 2. Chargers running back Austin Eckler said he will play in Monday night's game against Dallas at SoFi. Eckler has been out since Week 1 with a high ankle sprain. The Chargers are averaging only 2.7 yards per carry in Eckler's absence. The Clippers beat Utah by 5 in a preseason game last night in Seattle. Kawhi Leonard played 20 minutes. He led the Clippers with 16 points. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
On October 12, 2022, Nuri Martinez resigned from the Los Angeles City Council. This came a few days after the world heard Nuri and other elected members of the council speak disparagingly about black people, indigenous people, and others.
This white guy with this little black kid bouncing off the effing walls on the floor. There's nothing you can do.
And what participants believed was a private conversation, racism, colorism, homophobia, and bigotry were exposed like never before. The effort to undermine the political influence of black fellow citizens was specifically targeted by these so-called leaders. Everyday people stormed the doors of City Hall demanding immediate resignations. Even the President of the United States called for resignations. On Thursday, October 12th, 5 to 7 p.m., KBLA Talk 1580 will host a day of dialogue on the anatomy of anti-black racism and bigotry in Los Angeles with an all-star panel of civic leaders. Don't miss this conversation. Thursday, October 12th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an encore performance from 7 to 9 p.m. only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Good morning or evening, friends. Here's your friendly announcer. I have serious news to pass on to everybody. What I'm about to say could mean the world's disaster. Could change your joy and laughter to tears and pain. It's that love in need of love today. Don't delay, send yours in right away. Hey, going round, breaking many hearts. Stop it, please, before it's gone too far.
This is how you know that Stevie Wonder is a musical genius. Doesn't matter what the occasion is. Doesn't matter what the occasion is. Stevie's got a track for you. That's how you know he's the coldest to ever do it. Love, love, love. Me some Stevland Morris. Stevie Wonder's a bad boy. Love you, Stevie. In this hour, you listen to Tavis Smiley, by the way. And in this hour, on the night of July 7, 2016, a gunman killed 5 police officers in downtown Dallas. You might recall that. National, international news live on every channel. I remember it well, July 7th, 2016, 7/7/2016. So these officers are gunned down, killed in downtown Dallas. Our next guest, our guest in this hour, was the surgeon on duty that night and who happened to work on 3 of those officers. His name is Dr. Brian Williams. He's written a text on that experience called "The Bodies Keep Coming, Dispatches from a Black Trauma Surgeon on Racism, Violence, and How We Heal." I'm delighted to have him on in this hour to talk about cops and racism and gun violence. Dr. Brian Williams, good to have you on, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Tavis. Thank you for having me today.
It's my great delight to have you on. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the text. Thank you for this conversation. Let me just start broadly with this question. Parkland Hospital, where you were that night, has its own history, and for those who recognize the name, they know exactly what I'm talking about. But since you worked there, why don't you share the history of this noted hospital in Dallas?
Yeah, Parkland Hospital, it's an iconic hospital in American history. Most notably, that is where John F. Kennedy Jr. was taken. I'm sorry, President JFK was taken after he was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald. So he died there. Lee Harvey Oswald also died there when he was shot by Jack Ruby. So it has this iconic history, intersecting with events in the history of the country. But more importantly, it's the reason I moved to Dallas in the first place. It is a safety net hospital that provides care to the underserved, those who can't afford insurance, can't afford a doctor. That is the reason for being. I wanted to work in a hospital that had that sort of mission in the community.
Yeah. It may very well be the most famous hospital in the country. There have been movies done about it and documentaries done about it, books written about it. What's it like working at Parkland, particularly as an African-American? What's it like working in a place that iconic?
Well, again, it was the reason I came to Dallas. I knew I'd be dealing with patients that were, low-income patients, predominantly racial and ethnic minorities. And I felt just as a black doctor, I wanted to be in that sort of community. I wanted to give back to the community with my skills and training. But also, I was also the only black trauma surgeon of the group of 12. So there is this, you're navigating this world as a professional where you're the only person you see in your day-to-day work, but the patients you are caring for frequently look like you. Yeah. And I felt an obligation and to be the best I could to open the door for those coming up behind me, but also be a good doctor for the patients who are coming to me for care.
Yep. We'll get to that night here in just a moment. I'm glad we got an hour to just work our way into that. But let me just ask, I know how it happens, and the answer to how is a whole lot of work, a lot of hard work. I get that part. But I'm curious as to your backstory. Why does a black male named Brian Williams choose to be a trauma surgeon? Because you're right, not a whole lot of y'all. Why that path for Brian Williams?
Yeah, I tell people that I didn't choose trauma surgery. Trauma surgery chose me. I was drawn into this specialty as a medical student when I first had a chance to take call with the trauma team when I was in medical school in Tampa, at Tampa General Hospital. Just seeing the team go to work to save a gunshot victim, these are my people. I like the fast pace, the adrenaline. But my prior career, I was an aeronautical engineer. So I served in the Air Force as an engineer with no plans to go into medicine. That was a transition I made later in my career, and I felt this was kind of continuation of my record of service as a veteran, then as a doctor. But I like being pulled in different directions all the time, and trauma surgery was the sort of specialty that really played to my interests and strengths.
Got one or two more questions about that, and then we'll get straight to the night of July 7th, 2016. So let me ask two more questions on that, and we'll move to this fateful night in Dallas. You're listening to Dr. Brian Williams on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive, unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Coming 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit catblack.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with NCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
A sense of peace. A place to kick back and put down roots. A lasting legacy. However you define home, at City National, we're committed to helping you get there with our City National Ladder Up Home Loan Program. Find the full benefits at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National Bank, here for our clients and communities. Ladder Up program is available only in select areas. Terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS ID 536994.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
That's what we were taught, service before self.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
I'm Tavis Smiley. He is Dr. Brian Williams. He's our guest in this hour. He's a surgeon. He has written a powerful book called The Bodies Keep Coming, Dispatches from a Black Trauma Surgeon on Racism, Violence, and How We Heal. He was the surgeon on duty at Parkland Hospital, the same hospital where JFK was taken when he was shot in Dallas. He was on duty that night when these 5 officers were shot and killed in downtown Dallas. And he's written a book about that night, about that experience, and a great deal more. I'm pleased to have this black physician, trauma surgeon, Dr. Brian Williams, on our program in this hour. We were talking moments ago, Dr. Williams, about your being a trauma surgeon. I want to just probe that just a bit further, and then we'll move to July 7, 2016. I get the sense from what you said a few moments ago that there must be something joyful. That's my word. You can put it. You put it in your own words, of course. Must be something joyful, though, about being a trauma surgeon and saving lives. I mean, writ large, the medical profession is about good health and about saving lives. But when you are a trauma surgeon, you see the results of your work pretty immediately. You see in real time the lives that you are saving. That must account for something.
Absolutely. I think being a trauma surgeon it's the best specialty in medicine. Of course, I'm biased, but that's what I believe. You talked earlier about just the actual work of being a trauma surgeon, taking care of patients that are coming in near death, going to the OR. But there's the other part, the human side of this, where we get to comfort patients and families on some of the most traumatic days of their lives, right? You don't wake up expecting to get into a car accident and have a traumatic brain injury or be a victim of a gunshot or get hurt at work. We are there to hold your hand and say, look, it's bad right now, but we're going to get through this. So I enjoy that part as well, just being there for strangers on some of their worst days. And I also get to teach. I teach students and residents and fellows. You get to be a part of the next generation of healers.
Yeah.
So that's all very gratifying to me, and that's the joy of this specialty, which deals with a lot of death and destruction.
Yep. The flip side, you just teed it up, and I want to go there right quick. The flip side of saving lives and the joy and the gratitude, the gratifying nature of that, is when you lose a patient that you are operating on in a trauma situation. How do you process that? How do you process losing persons on that table? How do you not take that home with you? Just give me the other side.
That you have to be very intentional about maintaining our shared humanity with these patients who are injured, especially the ones that die. They come in, they don't get to choose who their doctor will be. So we are taking care of all types of people from all different backgrounds, and our job is to heal, not judge. And I want to ensure that I'm always in touch with that part of my humanity that feels something for the death of my patients. And I talk about this in the book, that after the death of those police officers, how I carried around the guilt of those losses for years. And that was sort of a transformative event for me about how I wanted to be part of the healing our community going forward.
Say a word finally, if you will, and then we'll move straight to July 7th, but a final word, if you will, about what you've learned about good bedside manner. Let me tell you why I ask that. There's so many folk listening to this program right now, no doubt, who know exactly what I'm talking about. We've all been through it as people of color, certainly as African Americans. You have a doctor, and it's not just the medical profession, but in many professions, you deal with this lack of core competency when it comes to how to treat people. But certainly in the field of medicine, because there are a lot more white doctors than black doctors, we find ourselves in situations with doctors who just don't have good bedside manner. They don't know how to talk to or treat people who look differently from them. Here you are, a black physician, a black trauma surgeon, and oftentimes saving the lives of black people, and to your point, many, many others. But what would you say to your profession writ large, particularly in crisis moments, about how to properly, how to lovingly treat their patients who happen not to look like them? Since you talked earlier about your humanity being in concert with the humanity, in alignment with the humanity of your patient, that line kind of jumped out at me.
This is a great thing about being in academic medicine, as I've been in my entire career, is that we get to be really critical of how we do our job, and we recognize and have to accept that racism is inherent within the healthcare system. It impacts how we treat our patients and patient outcomes, how we train our future doctors, and how we treat our colleagues. And it's in the subtitle of my book. Racism was a key theme I wanted to address. And we just have to accept and acknowledge the role that healthcare has played in creating the racial disparities that we have in healthcare that exist today. And until we acknowledge that and rip off that Band-Aid and start talking about that openly and teaching it to our trainees, then that is when we can actually be making a path towards making sure that our patients are treated with humanity and get the best outcomes, and that all that are in medicine feel accepted and valued for what they can provide to the profession.
The book
I talked about my incidences of being, you alluded to this. I've been called racial slurs by my patients. I've been instructed to take out the trash by my patients, clean their half-eaten tray of food. And it's happened at every stage of my career, from being a student to being attending atop of the hierarchy. It is there, but we go to work every day because it's important for us to be present for our patients.
Yeah, well, good luck. Good luck if Tavis Smiley is your trauma surgeon and you call me a racial epithet. Good luck to you. I'm gonna leave you in the hands of a gracious God. At least I hope so in that moment for you. You call me a racial epithet while you're on the table, and I'm trying to save your life. You're gonna be on your own, but you're a better man than I am, and that's why you're the trauma surgeon, and I'm just a lowly talk show host. Because they'd be dead if I had anything to do about it. You call me out of my name, and I'm trying to save your life. But I digress on that point. The book is called The Bodies Keep Coming, Dispatches from a Black Trauma Surgeon on Racism, Violence, and How We Heal. The book comes out of this night, 7/7/2016, when a gunman kills 5 cops in downtown Dallas. Dr. Brian Williams, our guest, is on call that night. He's on duty that night when these officers are rushed into Parkland Hospital. With that setup, Dr. Williams, take me back to 7/7/2016 and tell me all about it.
So 2016, 7 summers ago, this is a night that I still think about every day to this day. It's always in the background. And that night was initially my night off. One of my partners asked me if I could switch shifts with him, so I took his shift, unaware about what was about to happen in the city and around the country. But just a little bit of setup before we talk about the mass shooting of the police officers.
Sure.
There were protests all across the country in the days following the death of Philando Castile in Minnesota and Alton Sterling in Louisiana. So this was kind of set up to July 7th. And there were protests all around the country, but the one in Dallas turned violent. There was a black sniper, Army veteran, who was there targeting white Dallas police officers. Not all were white, but he said he wanted to kill white police officers. 14 were shot. 7 were brought to the hospital where I was working, and 3 of the ones that came to our hospital died from their wounds. And there's a moment that I did something I've done way too many times, which is I had to change out of my bloodied scrubs, put on clean scrubs, button up my white coat, and walk into a room and talk to family members to tell them about the death of the loved ones due to gun violence. And it was after that moment I went to a quiet corner of the hallway and done something I've not done in decades. And I fell to the floor and I was crying convulsively, Tavis, like convulsive crying. It was a moment that all this was just kind of bubbling within me, and it kind of broke out. And from that moment on, I realized what am I doing here in the hospital is not enough. This violence is still going to continue. There's issues of racism and policing and healthcare crisis. There's only so much I can do in the hospital. What am I going to do now going forward? And that was kind of the launching point for the book.
So let me ask you expressly about that night, and I want to ask some philosophical questions about what it means to be caught in the middle, because by caught in the middle, here's what I mean. You are a physician, but you were black before you ever became a trauma surgeon. And we are seeing the deaths of these black men, Philando Castile. That death will never be justifiable, what they did to him. You mentioned Alton Sterling. None of this stuff is justifiable. So as a black man, I know you have to resonate with that. On the other hand, you're a professional, and so you got these cops who are being brought into you, whose lives you're trying to save. So here you are caught between the brothers who are being killed oftentimes by these cops and the cops whose lives you have to save. If that ain't a conundrum, I don't know what is. We'll come to that. Put a pin in that. We'll come to that in just a second. Before I get to that conundrum, though, just tell me more about what you recall about that night, what you write about that night when these cops start being rushed into your hospital, Parkland.
In the moment, I just fell back on my training. It was all these larger societal issues were irrelevant during that time. I have multiple gunshot victims coming in. I'm a trauma surgeon. The team is here. We're going to go to work and do what we can to save these police officers. It's afterwards, and particularly in the press conference a few days later, where the issues you mentioned, what I was grappling with, because you can hold all these things as true, right? You can say that these killings of black men by police were unjustified, and you do something about that. You can also be a trauma surgeon who wants to save the lives of police officers who were killed or injured due to gun violence. Those things can be true. I was holding those both true, but there was an expectation from many that I had to take sides in that debate. And during the press conference a few days later, that's what I was struggling with as I heard what was being said, because it did not sit well with me. Should I say something or should I keep my mouth shut? And eventually I said something, and that changed everything.
We have some audio of that press conference that day. When we come forward in a few moments, we'll give the audience a taste of what you said on that particular day. Since you make reference to it now, we'll get to that a little bit later here. But tell me more right now about that dilemma, that dichotomy. You choose your own word of being a black man who has been called racial epithets by his patients. They've asked you to take out the trash. They've asked you to clean their trays. All the stuff you said earlier. So you've been subjected to this. Fortunately for you, you didn't lose your life. but so many other brothers and sisters have. So on the one hand, that's going through your mind. You know exactly what's brought this about. These protests in Dallas. You know exactly what that's all about. On the one hand, on the other hand, again, your job is to be is a professional as a trauma surgeon, is to save the lives of anyone brought to you. It happens this night that there are a bunch of cops that are brought to you. I can't imagine in that moment that you have time to process all this. To your earlier point, days later you start to go through it, and at one point you find yourself just breaking down and crying, as you said, just without ceasing, as it were, in that particular moment. But tell me more about that dilemma that one finds oneself in, given the role that you played that night.
Yeah, for me, I done a lot to assimilate and to ensure my success, right? I didn't want to be that person bringing up race and racism all the time. I just wanted to go to work, take care of my patients, teach some trainees, and avoid any controversy. But with all this happening around me, it became impossible for me to remain silent as I had been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And it all came to bear at that press conference, which initially I did not want to attend. It was my wife who said, "You have to go to this press conference." And as I'm sitting there, I'm having this internal debate about this is the time to say this because there are so many people who will never have the opportunity to have a platform like this to express all these issues that we're talking about throughout the year. And also remember, that was a year that we had the mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub about a month before.
Sure.
That was an election year between Trump and Clinton. It was just a crazy year of a lot of stuff. So that's kind of all building up in the background as well. So I found myself as the sole black trauma surgeon who was there trying to save the lives of police officers who were shot by a black sniper at a racial justice protest in the days after Philando Castile and Alton Sterling. All these things are adding up, and to me, it's like, okay, Brian, what are you going to do? What are you going to do now?
Here is some sound.
And that was the dilemma.
Speaking of what are you going to do now, and that dilemma that he just referenced, here is some sound now from Dr. Brian Williams as the only black trauma surgeon at that press conference some days later.
I stand with the Dallas Police Department. I stand with law enforcement all over this country. This experience has been very personal for me and a turning point in my life. There was the added dynamic of officers being shot. We routinely care for multiple gunshot victims. But the preceding days of more black men dying at the hands of police officers affected me. But I abhor what has been done to these officers, and I grieve with their families. I understand the anger and the frustration and distrust of law enforcement, but they are not the problem. The problem is the lack of open discussions about the impact of race relations in this country. And I want the Dallas Police to also see me, a black man, and understand that I support you, I will defend you, and I will care for you. That doesn't mean that I do not fear you.
It does not mean that I do not fear you. Dr. Brian Williams is our guest. His book is called The Bodies Keep Coming, Dispatches from a Black Trauma Surgeon on Racism, Violence, and How We Heal. More when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful they saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. At least 25 countries around the world are scrambling to track down and safely remove their citizens from Israel after war broke out between Israel and Hamas fighters over the weekend. In addition to over 2,000 combined Israeli and Palestinian deaths and 14 Americans killed, the United Kingdom, Russia, Ukraine, Argentina, Thailand, Nepal, and France are all reporting casualties. New York City Mayor Eric Adams will be meeting with former President Bill Clinton following his migrant trip to Central and South America. Adams, who is black, says Clinton dealt with narcotics coming from Colombia as president, and he wants his feedback on some recent ideas that have been proposed to the mayor regarding the migrant crisis. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Working on the 105 West at Vermont Avenue, moving off to the right shoulder. You're seeing some slowdown coming away from the 110. In downtown LA, 110 northbound at the 101. Stalled vehicle on that ramp. Traffic is jamming up at Olympic Boulevard. And we've got a wreck working in Azusa, 210 westbound at Vernon Avenue. That is on the shoulder, slowing back at Sunflower Avenue.
Make your next lunch a lunch combo from Buffalo Wild Wings. Choose from wings, street tacos, and more. Head to Buffalo Wild Wings or order online at buffalowildwings.com at participating locations for a limited time, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Price and participation vary by location. Taxes extra. See menu for details.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Want to save big on custom faux wood blinds, shutters, cellular shades, and more? Shop Blindster today and save up to 50% over comparable blinds from brick and mortar stores. Get custom blinds at low prices and free shipping at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Lance Lynn will be the Dodgers starting pitcher tonight in Game 3 against the Arizona Diamondbacks in Phoenix. The Dodgers facing a must-win situation, putting their trust in a guy who gave up 44 homers in the regular season, the most in the major leagues. It is very important for Lynn to get off to a good start. The Diamondbacks have scored a combined 9 runs in the first inning in Games 1 and 2. Chargers running back Austin Eckler said he will play in Monday night's game against Dallas at SoFi. Eckler has been out since Week 1 with a high ankle sprain. The Chargers are averaging only 2.7 yards per carry in Eckler's absence. The Clippers beat Utah by 5 in a preseason game last night in Seattle. Kawhi Leonard played 20 minutes. He led the Clippers with 16 points. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We're celebrating 1 year of the K. From checking out the vibrant art and diverse dining in Leimert Park to cheering on your favorite team in Inglewood, you can choose your own adventure when you ride the Metro K-Line. Leave the car at home and go Metro. Visit metro.net/K-Line.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what I have done to start this foundation.
In August 2020, after the death of George Floyd, Bridget Floyd and other family members established the George Floyd Memorial Foundation in support of the Black community.
It's going to take more than just us as a foundation. It's going to take the community, the world, to make a change.
Fight for racial justice for the Black community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
The conversation does indeed continue with Dr. Brian Williams, author of the book, The Bodies Keep Coming, Dispatches from a Black Trauma Surgeon on Racism, Violence, and How We Heal. We played moments ago some powerful words from him at that press conference a few days after this shootout in downtown Dallas. 5 officers killed on July 7, 2016. Days later, you heard him participate in this press conference, and you heard what he had to say. We'll get right back to that in just a moment, but there's some breaking news. We discussed this in our first hour today, and just like that, Republicans have, in fact, selected the person they want to be the new Speaker of the House. His name is Steve Scalise. He is presently the majority leader in the House, but they've chosen him to be the new Speaker. We are told in about an hour or so they expect to have a floor vote on his nomination, but by a vote of 113 to 99 during a closed-door party meeting, Steve Scalise turns back a challenge from Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio. That's the one you heard Maxine Waters on this program days ago called crazy. She said, Tavis, he's just stone cold crazy. And so they turned back Jim Jordan. He's an insurrectionist sympathizer. That's who could have been the Speaker. But the person they've chosen, Steve Scalise, as I mentioned in our first hour today, has said that he is David Duke without the baggage. Those are his words. This is the frame that we are in. The new Speaker, potentially, we'll see how the vote goes down in an hour or so from now, but the new Speaker of the House could be one who has bragged publicly about being David Duke, the white supremacist leader, without the baggage. That's who could be the next Speaker of your U.S. House of Representatives. So Jim Jordan loses in a closed-door vote to Steve Scalise of Louisiana. He is on tap to be the next Speaker if he can survive this vote. An hour or so from now, we are told, but that's the breaking news, the latest news on who will replace Kevin McCarthy. Matt Gaetz, speaking of crazy, the congressman out of Florida who led the fight to get rid of his Republican colleague Kevin McCarthy, said, and I quote, "Long live Speaker Scalise." On his way out of the conference room, he chanted that out loud. Long live Speaker Scalise. So Matt Gaetz, and you know all his backstory, is supporting Steve Scalise. So take that for what it's worth. But Louisiana's Steve Scalise. You may also recall this is the same congressman years ago who got shot at a softball game. So he has a storied past. He recovered from that shot at this softball game some years ago, as I recall. But again, has bragged publicly about being David Duke without the baggage. That is the person who, if this vote goes in his favor this afternoon, will be the next person to hoist the gavel as Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. Our democracy is in trouble when the Speaker has bragged about being. Anyway, you take my point. I digress. There's the news. Of course, we'll continue to cover that here on this program. as updates warranted, but that's what I know at this moment. Now back to Dr. Brian Williams, again, our guest in this hour. His book is called The Bodies Keep Coming, Dispatches from a Black Trauma Surgeon on Racism, Violence, and How We Heal. Sorry I had to get that in there, Dr. Williams, but that's breaking news. It's a strange segue back to what you were saying moments ago on this tape at this press conference days after this shooting and killing of 5 cops on July 7, 2016. So as I listened to that tape, and I recall hearing you the day you did this back in 2016, the day you participated as the only black trauma surgeon in that press conference. I remember it well. But when I heard it again yesterday, prepping for our conversation today, it reminded me that as eloquent as you were, I didn't see that last line coming. You set that thing up brilliantly. And you got to the very end, you said, but that does not mean that I do not fear you. Take me back to that moment and how that sort of played out in your head and what came out of your mouth in that microphone in that moment.
Absolutely, Tavis. And I just want to comment on your breaking news. Is you may not know this, but I'm actually a candidate for U.S. Congress here in Dallas.
I was getting to that.
I'm wanting to defend democracy from just that sort of thing you just discussed. But back to that day in July, those comments were unplanned. I actually had no speaking part that day, and I'm still not sure how the mic ended up in front of me, and I was asked the question. But that was just a stream of consciousness that was coming out of my mouth in that moment, and it was from the heart. I was saying what I felt, what I experienced, and I just put it out there, not thinking much about the consequences. I assumed that once I did that, made the statement, I would be fired from my job because my job that day was not to talk about racism and police brutality and gun violence and all those sorts of things, but to represent the hospital. But the words resonated. That clip is still played, years later, and people talk about my press conference. And I have to remind them, it wasn't my press conference. It was a 45-minute press conference with 7 people speaking. But for some reason, those 2 minutes are what resonated. And I think it's because those issues were salient at the time, and nobody was talking about it. And I kind of brought it to bear during a live press conference.
So you did not lose your job. The hospital did not fire you. But what was the fallout? What were the consequences and repercussions of saying at the end of that comment, at the end of your commentary, your thoughts that day, that does not mean that I don't fear you? What were the repercussions?
Well, I felt immediate relief when I said that. There was a weight lifted, the mask was off, and after that, all of my relationships changed. Some for the better, some ended. Personal, professional, friends, strangers. I would say about 85, 90% of that was positive response, but there was about 10% that was really vitriolic and condemned what I said, condemned me as a doctor who should not be allowed to care for police officers or white people. I had black people telling me they were glad to let the cops die. There were things that were said to me, to my face, or sent to me in letters that just really, truly shocked me, because I really was just there. I'm here to save people's lives. How could you think I would want to allow someone to die, anyone? And the words and the statement really changed how I interacted with a lot of people that were close to me and with whom I worked. And, I feel that now I'm on a it closed my social circle. The people that I knew were with me are still with me, and those that weren't are no longer with me.
How did you respond? I'm pushing toward your run for Congress. I was absolutely aware of that, and it was on my docket. It is on my docket. We'll get to that later in this hour before I lose you at the top of the hour. But let me ask you right quick, watching my time here. How did you respond to those persons who heard you say, that does not mean I don't fear you? When persons ask you how you could admit to being fearful of certain cops and yet operate with gifted hands, if I can put it that way, to save, or at least attempt to save their lives. There's something that people could read as being off there. So I'm afraid of you, but I'm willing to save your life. How do you square those two things?
I think that those of us that are in medicine and do trauma understand how I can say that, because we were trained to save lives, and I think they get it. Those that are not in this profession, I can understand why there is some confusion about that. I did have police officers who came to me afterwards and said, you know what, I never thought about that until you said that, that if I pulled someone like you over, that you would feel that way. I said, well, you know me. You know me as this doctor you see every day in the hospital, but out there, nobody knows that. So I think it opened up some eyes in that regard. And I had many people tell me that it opened up conversations within their families about violence and racism. And I received letters and cards and gifts from people all over the world, Tavis. It was just boxes would just show up to Dallas. There said, Dr. Brian Williams, Dallas, Texas, and they got to me. So say what you want about the U.S. Postal Service. They can get it done when they need to.
When they need to, yeah. No, I'm laughing because, and this ain't funny, but I take your point that when the cops pull you over, you ain't no black trauma surgeon. You're not at this famous hospital called Parkland. You're just another Negro in a car. And at that point, anything could happen. So I take your point about being fearful because they don't know anything about your backstory. They don't know anything about the cops' lives you have tried to save or have, in fact, saved. They know none of that. They just see a black man in a car, you get put over, you're no different than all the rest of us. I digress. When we come forward, a bit more about this book, The Bodies Keep Coming, and we'll talk about his run for Congress, given this breaking news we just shared about Steve Scalise being the nominee for the Republican caucus to be the next Speaker of the House. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Walk to Save Lives. Join the American Heart Association's Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, Sunday, October 22nd at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Team up with friends and family and walk to end heart and stroke. Every step you take and every dollar raised will help save lives and make our community a healthier place for all. Learn more and sign up for free at heartwalkla.org. Sponsored by Optum, UCLA Health, Providence, Keck Medicine of USC, and Dignity Health.
What's up? I'm Danelle Riley, FAMU alumni and creator of the HBCU Culture Shop. I am so proud of my new partnership with Black Beyond Measure and Target. They help me elevate community pride with my HBCU designs and continue to support Black creators and entrepreneurs with Target HBCU challenges, scholarship programs, and campus collaborations. Let's come together this homecoming season and beyond. Shop my brand and discover other Black-owned products at target.com/BlackBeyondMeasure.
The Green Foundation, key health influencer, empowering our Black communities through action. The Green Foundation advocates for affordable health care, accessibility, and knows the importance of culturally relatable health care. Regardless of income, we believe it is a right for optimum health. The Green Foundation has been at the forefront for 25 years, dedicated solely to promoting prevention through early detection, annual screenings, and nutrition. We know you because we are you. Our hand-holding approach supports you and your family to receive your right to be treated fairly and receiving quality healthcare services. We want you and your family to know COVID-19 was devastating to our families and to our wallet. We can build back better by understanding prevention, wearing your mask, washing your hands, social distancing, and understanding the impact of long COVID. Get the care you deserve. Take advantage of your privileges. Contact us, info@thegreenfoundation.net. info@thegreenfoundation.net.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Dr. Brian Williams, author of the new book, The Bodies Keep Coming, Dispatches from a Black Trauma Surgeon on Racism, Violence, and How We Heal. I was thinking, Dr. Williams, during that break, whether or not I can recall, and I could be wrong about this, I'm trying to think of whether or not there's ever been a black male physician elected to Congress. I can think of a few white male physicians who've been in Congress. I don't know that I can think of a black male physician who ever ran for and was elected to Congress. You may know the answer to that question better than I do, but I say all that to ask, after all that you have done in the Air Force and all that you've done as a physician, a first-person engineer and a trauma surgeon, and now you decided to run for Congress in the Dallas area. Tell me about why you're running and tell me a bit about the campaign.
I'm running because the country's in a crisis, and as an Air Force veteran, I've always answered the call during times of crisis. We have an epidemic of gun violence, we have a healthcare crisis, racial justice, and I feel that I have the leadership skills that are needed during this time. You're correct. There's never been a black male doctor in Congress. There's only been one black doctor elected to Congress, Dr. Christensen, but she's from the U.S. Virgin Islands, so she could not actually vote. So if elected, I'd be the first black doctor who could vote in Congress. And in 2023, that's absurd. We haven't had any more black doctors. But we need more doctors, period. There's only 19 doctors in Congress, so we need more of us at the table working on these issues. But I've worked in Congress as an advisor. I've had the chance to work on monumental federal legislation, so the process is something I'm familiar with. And we are a formidable campaign right now. You asked about the campaign. We are a front runner. We have outraised all of our competitors in this race as far as fundraising. I've been endorsed by several organizations that support veterans, doctors, and the team is growing. It's getting stronger. Yep. We're getting a lot of attention. So I just go check out drbrianwilliamsforcongress.com to support our team and join our campaign.
Tell me about your district. But let me do this. Let me hold that question for a second. When we come forward, I want to ask you about the not the campaign. You talked about that. About the district. I know Dallas fairly well. I'm just curious as to the district you're running in, and we'll get a bit more about that. Dr. Brian Williams could be Congressman Dr. Brian Williams if elected. We'll talk more about that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family was founded to help address domestic violence and sexual assault in the Asian and the Pacific Islander communities. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family's mission is to build healthy and safe communities by addressing the root causes and consequences of family violence and violence against women. They are committed to meeting the specific cultural and language needs of the Asian and Pacific Islander women and their families. CPAF's vision is of an Asian and Pacific Islander community that embraces healthy relationships and works in partnership with other communities to eradicate all forms of violence. To access services, volunteer, or for more info, visit nurturingchange.org. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe believe everyone deserves to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistent scent. All over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face. When it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Dr. Brian Williams, tell me more about this district you're running in.
So it's District 32, which is here in Dallas, and Colin Allred, who's a name you may know, is running for Senate against Ted Cruz. So this is an open seat. It's drawn for a Democrat. I'm running as a Democrat in this district. And right now, doing very well in the campaign. Front runner, raising the funds, getting out there, meeting the voters. And if elected, I'll be the first trauma surgeon elected to Congress. I'll be the first black doctor with voting privileges in Congress. But more importantly, I'm taking this ethos I've learned as a veteran, an Air Force Academy graduate, about service before self, which I heard that phrase in one of your earlier commercials. It's about taking my long record of service to this country, to my community, and the time I already spent in Washington, and extending that to work on these issues that are impacting the country right now that I have frontline experience dealing with.
Democrats, as you know, are pretty rare in Texas, certainly in Congress. There are a few, of course, that come to mind. But what is it like these days politically, being a black male Democrat trying to gain some traction in a race in Texas, of all places?
Well, I'll tell you, in this district, when Texas redrew the lines, this district was drawn for a Democrat. So I'm kind of at home right here in the district where I'm running for the issues that I'm talking about because they resonate with voters. Right. Gun violence prevention, the healthcare crisis, defending democracy. So, and also as a veteran, I think people recognize that we as veterans have a special relationship with what it means to be an American, what it means to serve this country. And when, especially with black veterans, we keep showing up to ensure that America continues to make progress towards manifesting the ideals professed in the Constitution. So that is a sort of ethos and leadership I intend to take to Congress. And like I said, I invite people to learn more about the campaign at drbrianwilliamsforcongress.com.
My father is a veteran, served 37 years in the Air Force, so I know a bit about the life you've lived, having grown up in that for my entire formative years. And yet I've had these conversations with my father many times about the ways in which black folk have learned to love this country in spite of, not because of. We've learned to love this country in spite of, not because of. And I'm always, my father included, just fascinated by those who are black, given the way the country has maltreated us, who agree to serve and put themselves on the line, even to die for this country.
Because we are the ones that always show up, right? We are the ones that continue to push America towards manifesting those ideals that are professed in the Constitution. I love this country, and I recognize that it's not perfect. And when I criticize and try to make change, it is out of love, because every person in this country should be accepted and respected for their inherent worth and dignity. And who better to understand the importance of that than black people in this country? We've built this country, we've bled for this country, and we continue to show up and do the work for this country. And that is part of the motivation for me to step into this new arena, to take that sort of work ethic to Congress, to continue making this country a better place.
Dr. Brian Williams, now running for Congress out of Dallas, Texas. His book is called The Bodies Keep Coming, Dispatches from a Black Trauma Surgeon on Racism, Violence, and How We Heal. It's a fascinating journey he has been on and remains on, and we'll see in the coming days whether or not he makes this next move to Washington. Dr. Williams, good to have you on. Thanks for your work and witness, sir. All the best to you.
Thank you very much for having me, Tavis. Appreciate it.
My great delight. Thank you, sir. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network At least 25 countries around the world are scrambling to track down and safely remove their citizens from Israel after war broke out between Israel and Hamas fighters over the weekend. In addition to over 2,000 combined Israeli and Palestinian deaths and 14 Americans killed, the United Kingdom, Russia, Ukraine, Argentina, Thailand, Nepal, and France are all reporting casualties. New York City Mayor Eric Adams will be meeting with former President Bill Clinton following his migrant trip to Central and South America. Adams, who is black, says Clinton dealt with narcotics coming from Colombia as president, and he wants his feedback on some recent ideas that have been proposed to the mayor regarding the migrant crisis. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 News Source.